Hello, I'm Tony Kincaid. I'm the president and CEO of the Epilepsy Association of North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Lily Taha, and I am co-CEO of the Epilepsy Association of North Carolina.
My name is Amber Eckert. I'm Vice President of the Epilepsy Association of North Carolina. You can reach me on Facebook. I run the Randolph and Moore County, the Purple Warriors, and also the Purple Warriors of Guilford County.
And you can find many of us because we have 15 web pages here in North Carolina. And one is our Epilepsy Association of North Carolina, Epilepsy of Gaston County, Epilepsy of Forsyth County, Epilepsy of Guilford County, and several others.
I got started in the epilepsy of Davidson County, and that's where we started at.
I was trying to keep it straight.
I would like to share my story with you about my epilepsy. Well, I had an AVM that ruptured in my brain when I was 17, which caused massive bleeding in my brain. So they had to go in and take the aneurysm out, which gave me 5% chance of living through that. But after the surgery, the scar tissue was so great that it started causing me to have epilepsy. So when this started, I tried for years on medications to control my seizures, but they were uncontrollable. I was able to work for 10 years with Duracell. I had a seizure in the cafeteria. When I woke up, they told me, Mr. Kincaid, you don't have a job here anymore, and you don't have our health insurance, and we don't give you our support. So I went home. Within 6 weeks, the North Carolina Highway Patrol came and took my driver's license. So when you have epilepsy, you're sort of stripped of all your dignity. But during these years, I still had uncontrolled seizures. There was about 3,000 a month of all types of seizures. So I went to the Bowman Gray School of Medicine in Winston-Salem to enter their research drugs. And I was in their system for 5 years trying all kind of new research drugs for epilepsy. And toward the end of the 5 years, there was still nothing to help me. My doctor told me not to make a return appointment, to go on home because I would not live another month. And you know, during this time when you don't have any support, I had to sell my cemetery plots, I had to sell my life insurance policies to make a house payment. And after the 5 years, Cyberonics called me and asked me, would I be willing to be the first person implanted with a vagal nerve stimulator, which I was there the next morning. They tried it, and after 2 years, they did stop my seizures, and I haven't had a seizure in about 24 years. And these reasons, I met many people with epilepsy. And I've seen how they hurt, how they're discriminated against, how they're abused, neglected. And for these reasons, I said, well, I've got to do something now. My seizure's under control. So I decided we need to start a support group. Because in North Carolina, we have epilepsy groups, but they just don't seem to help the people that fall between the cracks. So we decided to get together and start a group that's a grassroots group for everybody in North Carolina. Because we have over 125,000 people in North Carolina with epilepsy. And we knew at that point they weren't being taken care of. So I asked some friends of mine to meet me and start planning help for these people. And we did. And there were 3 of us met at McDonald's to start this group. Well, I decided to get a group together, the people that I posted on Facebook. And we met the first meeting at McDonald's in Lexington. And lo and behold, I don't know how it happened, but the good Lord brought a group together. And I came in, and Lily Taha, which is beside me, was sitting there eating her breakfast. And we got talking. And she is the spark plug of this group.
So I'm Lily Taha, and I came to meet Tony and to see what else I could do because my seizures are not controlled till this day. I still have seizures. So I wanted to actually bring awareness and help us as a group come together. So I'm Lily Taha, and my epilepsy story is that whenever I was young, approximately 5 years of age, I ended up having a high temperature. My temperature reached 107. Back then, they used to put the kids in ice. Doing that, it caused brain damage. So after that, I noticed that I wasn't learning like I was supposed to. I had to have glasses. It had caused a horrific part to my brain. Later on, we started noticing me passing out, and they called it fainting with convulsions. Little did they know that nobody was treating me for epilepsy, and that's actually what I had. So I ended up going to the doctors. And around here, we don't have many. You have to go to the bigger cities. So I ended up having one here that put me on so much medication, it made me comatose. I lost my license. I lost everything. Whenever I have a seizure or something, a lot of it affects my family. Back whenever I first got epilepsy, disability was not one of the things. The only thing I could work for was state mandated programs, and that's because they got tax deductions off of me working. So, that being said, it made it very hard to get the good drugs because your income is so little, you end up with the ones that end up tearing up your body. I ended up then going to Duke, where they were able to get my seizures under control some, but I am not seizure-free. Even though I do take my meds and try to know what my triggers are, I have several different types of epilepsy. I have, which some people have and don't know about or haven't figured it out, but I have like female, whenever you menstruate, I have epilepsy I have a seizure from that. I have seizures from flashing lights. If you ever see us in something, you'll see me. I always have several different pairs of sunglasses because flashing lights is one of my triggers. I have to smells. I can have seizures. So we had to literally learn how to figure out every one of my seizures and to accommodate them. Another one is also sugar. I had to watch out because my sugar would peak so low it would cause me to have a seizure. It was very hard on my family. Not only could I not work, because at the time we was not allowed to, I had to sit there and do jobs that were bad. Eventually I was able to go up under rehabilitation and able to get a job. I became a nurse. Believe it or not, yes, I took care of people. It's only that later on in life that my seizures got much worse, that my kids became my nurses. Unfortunately, my kids have, in a lot of ways, got hurt from me having a seizure. I have the very bad, uncontrollable grand mal seizures. I have broke people's hands. I have almost cut people's fingers because they try to stick them in your mouth. Cut them off because I've bitten so hard down on them. I want people to know that even though you have epilepsy, doesn't mean that you can't do something. You can. It may be a little harder, but we can do things. And that's the reason why I joined the group, was because I wanted to give other people who still have the seizures like I do a chance to say, hey, I can do this. I really can.
Hi everyone, my name is Amber Eckerd. I got involved in the Epilepsy Association of North Carolina because I have a son who suffers from seizures. He had his first seizure when he was just a couple months old. I remember that day just like it was yesterday. I'm driving down the road, my son's in the back seat like a normal child, and you can hear him back there babbling like you do most kids. when all suddenly I didn't hear him babbling anymore, and I noticed he was very quiet. I looked in the rearview mirror and I noticed that my son's eyes was open, but he was not acting himself and he wouldn't respond to me. So I immediately pulled my vehicle over on the side of the highway, crawled in the back seat, and still couldn't get his attention. And I noticed that his legs were starting to twitch a little bit. So immediately I get on the phone with 911. I have never witnessed a seizure before, didn't know about anything about seizures. And remember the 911 operator telling me that my son was experiencing a seizure. Instantly, I remember that fear and panicking because as a mother, you didn't know what to do. Was there anything you could do for your child? So immediately they're talking about sending the ambulance to where we were at, and I told them I was closer to the hospital. So immediately I drove my son as fast as I could to the hospital, which was just a couple of miles away. That was the first time Jesse had experienced his seizure. As he got older, he continued to have seizures. It was not until he was a year old when he was actually diagnosed with epilepsy. He went in for a test that they did, I guess it was the EEG. They hooked him up, and Jesse had 22 seizures right there during that test. And I remember the doctor telling me that he was having what they called absent seizures. As Jesse got older, I think by the time he was 2 is when they decided to start him on medication because his seizures were getting more frequently. By that time, no one had still never told me truly what a seizure was or what to expect. I was never informed that my child could die from seizures. I never knew that he was having seizures while he was sleeping because the type of seizures that he has, he doesn't necessarily just fall out and start jerking like most people assume happens when you have a seizure. Jesse could have absent seizures, which means that he could still be staring, and what most teachers thought was him daydreaming was actually him having a seizure. So another reason why I got involved with the Epilepsy Association is because I did not think it was right the way that my son was being treated at school. He was told that he couldn't be involved in certain classes. They didn't want him to be involved in certain games during PE because they told him they didn't feel like he'd be safe enough. Even if you have epilepsy, you should have the same rights as any other student at school. You should be able to be involved in sports. My son was denied that for many years. He was not allowed to fully participate in a lot of classes, so he had to be held back on certain activities, which means he had to sit on the sidelines and watch the rest of the class be involved in these activities, and he couldn't. My son also experienced seizures inside the school, and the teachers would leave him in a seizure, or he would hear the teacher tell the other kids, there's nothing wrong with him, he'll work when he wants to work. He has his moments when he decides to shut down. When in reality, it was actually him having a seizure. Now, as Jesse got older, we found out that he developed 2 other different types of seizures. So in the end, Jesse is now a 17-year-old boy. No, I won't say boy. He's becoming a young man. My apologies, Jesse. But now that he is 17 and he is a senior this year, he's finally made it onto a football team. And he's showing them that no matter if you have seizures or not, you still have a normal life just like everybody else. And you should never hold yourself back. Give it everything that you've got and go for it. He has been able to tell his teammates about his seizures. And we've been able to talk to them and teach them how to handle him if he's having a seizure. Now, along with this, we have to tell them that Jesse has 3 different types of seizures. He has tonic, atonic, and partial epilepsy with unconsciousness. Now, with this new seizure that Jesse took on, we noticed that he's done like some others do when they have seizures. He starts to have trouble breathing, which means he's not getting enough oxygen, so we noticed that he would break out with a rash that forms on his chest that goes up his neck and to his face. So that was one of the things that we learned from having to watch him experience his seizure. So we also noticed that going around to the health departments and even to his regular doctors and specialists, nobody had any information on epilepsy. There was just nothing out there. The doctors said that they didn't have anything to provide us. And we didn't know about all the support systems because we had to go many years with having no one to talk to and thinking that we were alone. And Jesse never got to interact with other kids around his age and know that there were other people out there like him. So being part of this organization helped us to realize there are so many more out there and that there is tons of help out there, and we want to make it available to everyone.
Hi, I'm Lily,
And I'm Amber.
and we're with the Epilepsy Association of North Carolina.
Make sure that you click on the links below so you can hear more stories about the founders, and we hope that our videos are able to help you and more people like us.